You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Continuing our streak with double header episodes, it is 7 p.m. on the Pacific side, and it is 10 p.m. on the Eastern side. And that must mean it's time for a double long, double wide, double exciting, double tasty Mission Log Live. I'm Norman Lau.
I'm Holly Amos, and tonight we're back to discuss the penultimate episode of Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Episode 12, Species 10C. We finally get to meet them.
Woohoo!
Yay. But there's more. We're also going to be covering Penance.
Yes.
Episode 2 of Picard, because the trial never ends.
The trial never ends. That's right. Just like last week, we are in this incredible situation where we're reviewing two Star Trek episodes somewhat simultaneously because they were released at the same, well, not the same time, but on the same day.
On the same day.
On the same day. And that hasn't been done ever?
No, not since the 90s, though.
Not since the 90s.
The 90s.
So last week we did it. This week we're going to do it. Next week is the last of at least this most current run. And then much later on, we're going to have Picard
crossover with, the last episode of Picard will cross over with the first season. And I say I was talking about this to some of my friends the other day, and they're like, wait, there was a crossover? I was like, no. That when they they think that they thought that I was talking about like, in the show. I was like, the schedule, like there's one episode that will cross over for Strange New Worlds, which is
that's exciting. There's a lot of Star Trek going on. That's why we're here. So, Holly, where can our listeners start lining up so they can start talking about us? Well,
you guys know how to click on the Zoom link, or you can call 669-900-6833, enter the meeting code and password, and then you will be in the Earl Green Room, and he will pass you along to us. Oh, and let him know which one you want to discuss, and if you want to discuss one or the other or both.
That's right. So
he puts you into the show at the correct time.
In the first half of the show, we're going to be talking about Discovery. The second half of the show, we'll be talking about Star Trek Picard. In the middle of the show, we have a very special something to share with all of you. If you've been following our Twitter, which you should be doing, you're going to hear some exciting stuff in the middle of the show. Holly's going to bring all that information to you. But let's jump into the chat and see who we have here. So coming in because Rank has his privileges, our hip. Earl told me about that, and that's because he's more hip than I know, our hip being to be. Ranks has its privileges. We have the Admiral in the pole position. We have Bob Amos coming in there as always. It's great to have you always here, Bob. We have a Paul in the top 5, which is always good. You know, I feel like Casey Kasem's countdown. Now we have a Paul in the top 5. That was terrible, Casey Kasem, but that's what I'm going to do. We have Rhea. Hi, Rhea. She says, good evening and good night. Are you already gone? Did you leave? I hope not. I hope you're still here. Chris Riker, John Arminio, thank you very much for an email that you sent us that we're going to read on an upcoming episode of Engage. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Dave Ketchy, good to see you. I see so many Pauls, but I'm not sure if it's the same Paul or Paul's just in different universes. So either way, I'm counting at 3. Alan, good to see you. Scott Palm, Dave Taylor. Michael, sorry that Captain Mike Richards can't be here. He has to do something, I don't know, like responsible. So he had to go to bed early or something like that. John Cooley is here with a wonderful shamrock icon in his.
Yes, it is almost St. Patrick's Day. Today's Pie Day, though.
It is. And you said you celebrated or celebrating or
I'll be celebrating after this. I baked a pie.
Oh yeah,
I made a delightful apple crumble that I will be eating after this. So, but not only is it Pie Day, it's also a very special anniversary. On this day in 1993, Deep Space Nine's maybe the worst episode, I don't know, Move Along Home premiered.
So everyone all together now, right? So
Alan Moraine, count to 4. Alan Moraine, then 3 more. Alan Moraine, if you can't see, Alan
Moraine with me. So you're welcome because somebody had to, and that someone is Holly. And thank you for doing that. Just to let you know what's coming up on Mission Log this week, very busy week. We continue the journey with Parallax, Voyager's 2nd episode, and we're doing it this Thursday. And it's an interesting episode. It focuses on B'Elanna Torres. It focuses on whether or not the Maquis and the Federation crews can work with each other? Or will they just continually fight and have parents try to separate them and make sure that they play nicely together? Warp Particles is the bonding moment, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Mission Log Prodigy is also back this week. We're going to be dropping a very special supplemental with Ashley V. Robinson and myself when we're taking a look at the first 5 episodes from an older fan's perspective. Usually on Prodigy, we try and come at it from a younger fan's perspective, but now as older fans are finding the secret sauce inside of Prodigy and how it resonates with them, we're going to be talking about that. Also, we have Mission Log the Orville coming back with season 2's lasting impressions. It's that episode with the cell phone and the strange girl's life that gets recreated. Fantastic episode, probably one of the best in this series. You're going to want to make sure that you listen to that with Captain Mike Richards and Jessica Lynn Verdi. Engage is also back this week because John and I were able to get to some fantastic emails. Again, thank you, John Arminio, for sending in yours. So make sure that you go to Roddenberry Entertainment channel on YouTube, sub to all of these sub channels because you want to stay in touch with us because that's the great stuff that we're producing for all of you. And make sure you stay in touch with us at podcast.roddenberry.com where all of our shows are listed. Deep breath. Whew, that's a lot.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of Star Trek. There's a lot of sci-fi. There's a lot going on.
Before we jump into the recap, because we have to split the show into twain. We haven't experienced this before, or at least, like you said, Holly, since the 90s. So good idea that we're crossing over this much, or is it just coincidence?
I think, again, I don't feel like this is unfolding the way that CBS, Viacom, Paramount, whatever entity you want to refer to. I don't think that this is what they planned. From what I understood, what they had planned is that there wasn't really going to be a crossover, but there was going to be at least one show streaming and available at a time, right?
Right.
And then we would basically have Star Trek year round, but COVID messed all of that up because it messed up the shooting schedule. So I'm fine with it. I think having grown up in the 90s that I'm super cognizant of people experiencing a level of burnout that we did in the 90s. But I think because all of these shows are happening in different time periods in the franchise and they're meant for different audiences, I don't know how many people are watching every single series. I mean, I am, but I think if somebody watches something and it's not their cup of tea, they can go and watch one of the other series. So
for sure.
I think that's what I am liking about this Renaissance right now is that they're all very different. And if you don't like one, you will probably like another.
I mean, there's a lot of variety. And I think that's the secret probably just to the ease of which people can kind of like pick and choose which Star Trek is right for them, like a salad bar, or like a buffet. You don't have to have it all. It's great if you want it. But you don't have to have it all.
Also streaming makes everything easier, right? Because I remember missing episodes of Deep Space Nine back in the day and being like, well, I don't know what's going on.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's also nice that you don't have to set the proverbial VCR for the proverbial episode.
God, do you remember doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Setting the VCR to
Yep. And then you have to make sure that if you were really diligent, and if you knew your VHS player intimately, you knew their rollback sequence, that how many seconds it rolls back after you hit pause, so that you can count forward before the commercial break. So you have a seamless transition out and in.
Yeah.
That's pro, right?
I didn't do that with Star Trek stuff, but I did that with NSYNC stuff.
Like the band?
Yeah.
Like, all you people, can't you see?
That's the wrong one.
Oh, sorry.
That's the
I thought it was larger than life myself. So let's get into the recap before we go down that 90s rabbit hole, of which I have been, and I like NSYNC, the whole marionette thing.
Oh,
that's
okay,
them, right?
good. So you know who they are. Great.
I do. I love me my J.C. Chazes. Right. Species 10C for Star Trek Discovery, season 4, the penultimate episode. Upon I needed to get this pun perfectly.
Okay.
Upon the arrival of the USS Discovery to the hyperfield of species 10C, Captain Burnham, the Discovery's crew, President Rillick, and all of the first contact delegates are in sheer awe of its size. Species 10C has not responded to hails nor appears to be interested in them at all. However, the clock is ticking as the DMA's effects will soon begin impacting Earth and Ni'Var, and communications must be established immediately, starting with using the chemical compound form of, quote unquote, we come in peace, via the dots using said compound to knock on the front door, which works in an unexpected way as Species 10C opens said door of sorts through their hyperfield and ushers them inside. Meanwhile, on Booker's ship, both he and Tarka are updated by their informant on the inside, General Ndoye, who updates them to the situation. Discovery is now on the inside and is in talks of sorts with Species 10C. Jet Reno, observing all of the goings on from her cell, needs to find a way to contact Discovery. If she only had some black licorice. Well, because she's hungry too. As Species 10C continues to actively scan Discovery and her systems, Burnham, her crew, and the first contact delegates fervently math and science their way through a series of complex calculations and simulations to try and find a way to establish the most rudimentary hello. Zora is experiencing her own nagging problem, one which she needs Dr. Culber to help diagnose. Back on Book's ship, Reno, who finally got her licorice, is working on a way to communicate both with Discovery and with Book, who she believes is not 100% on board with Tarka's plan, Tarka's real plan, which, through her silent observations, knows will end in disaster for everyone. She reminds Book that their respective grief has blinded both his and Tarka's perspective as it once did hers after she lost her wife. As Tarka is preparing to escape the hyperfield, Burnham and her expert team of linguists finally break through the language barrier by discovering a relationship between Species 10C's pheromone and the most recent lighting strobing patterns. And after receiving Discovery's most recent attempt at hello, Species 10C sends a shuttle as an invitation for Burnham and her handpicked team to further continue their talks. And as they made slow and steady progress, understanding that there may have been a miscommunication between their species all along, something happens which ends their negotiations sharply. Tarka has sabotaged Discovery's peace talks as he executed his escape plan. He overwhelms Book and imprisons him with Reno as Ndoye, his spy on the inside, releases warp plasma, which burns a hole in the hyperfield, allowing Tarka to escape, but not before Reno could send off a message with Book's help to warn Burnham and Discovery to stop Tarka at all costs. The end. And that's as fast as I could make it.
Yeah, that was pretty condensed. Good job.
So much stuff to get to. Thank you. Thank you. Before we get to our first caller, Chris, who's waiting, let's jump a little bit into our notes. Holly, what did you think about this episode?
I appreciated the slowdown. I mean, I do like when we have balanced episodes between, blow them up and shoot them up and like actual dialogue and character building. This was a very slow episode. There's not a lot of action, but I love the problem solving and brainstorming aspect of this episode, which is just runs through the whole thing. That's like what I'm here for. That's good Star Trek.
Yeah. I mean, I like when episodes find that moment in the series to slow down and take the moment to kind of to breathe, let the series breathe a little bit, as opposed to just keep moving forward and forward and forward and finding pockets of air to breathe. I just think that for me, this episode being the second to last, penultimate episode, is the wrong place for this.
Do you think the slowdown should have been earlier in the season?
Maybe 2 or 3 episodes before, just to let all the characters have that moment, have their moments, which they did in this episode,
right?
Because it seems that they're going to have to resolve a lot next week or this coming week,
which is kind of an issue that we've had with Discovery before, right? Like everything has to get wrapped up in a neat bow, or at least we hope that they wrap everything up. And then sometimes we find that we're like, well, what happened to this? And what happened to that? And what about the cat? What's the cat doing?
No, I guess this all hinges on whether or not we believe that they're going to conclude this story in one episode, as opposed to conclude some of the threads and allow the greater storyline to continue into season 5.
Well, I mean, obviously the greater story in terms of character development always continues into the next season. We'll see if we get ended on a cliffhanger. I mean, that was the thing that they did back in the day, right? Is instead of it being serialized, they would have a 2-part episode, but the last episode of the season would leave us on a cliffhanger for the entire summer. Like, remember best of both worlds. Like that was, people were like pulling over Sir Patrick and they were like, you ruined our summer because we don't know what happened to you. So, I mean, I feel like that's less of a thing now because it's serializing, but I do hope that there's a number of things that I hope they wrap up. And it is a lot for them to have to do in one episode, but they're also not confound to like the 45 minutes either. Like we've had longer episodes than that. So I hope they just do it without it feeling like forced or rushed or forgetting anything.
True. Right. I did like how there were several homage type of themes at play here, at least for me. I felt a lot of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, like the very final sequence when they were negotiating the tune with the aliens for first contact situation. I felt a lot of, as I made the pun earlier, the very first sentence, I felt a lot of the 2016 Amy Adams movie, The Arrival, how they used a lot of science and math and trial and error to get to a point of contact with the aliens that were, appearing all over Earth. So there are things like that. And there, of course, there was this great kind of flavor to the motion picture where you felt it was very V'ger-esque. The hyperbarrier. So, and a little bit of the abyss.
It's hardcore sci-fi, right? Like this is the hardcore sci-fi that like our parents and grandparents grew up with, where it's like heavy conversation, not so much like, partially because they didn't have the special effects back in the day, right? To just like blow stuff up all the time.
Right.
But these types of conversations and big ideas are what true sci-fi started off as.
Exploration, like a longer narrative, introspection, like more of the human adventure as on the inside as opposed to, or internally as opposed to externally.
Right.
Yeah. Which is kind of like Star Trek's bread and butter, which is maybe why it resonates a little more strongly with some fans of the overall fandom than say others.
Right. I mean, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I did too. And let's see, unless you have any other points, let's see what
Chris thinks.
Yeah, see what Chris thinks. Did Chris appreciate it? So, hey, Chris, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Where are you today? Where are you?
This is BoJack Horseman's house.
Sure. Yeah.
Netflix show BoJack Horseman.
Those are some stilts.
Right? Yeah. Very Malibu. No, but I really like this. The whole Arrival sort of problem solving, like Holly said. My favorite bit was actually the first sequence that Book and Reno have, where we get kind of the sort of like lore and backstory on both of them, going to what you guys are saying about sort of the slowdown. That, like, as much as I love that scene, I would have loved that to have happened a little earlier, especially for Book, that you get more sort of him going against Tarka. Like, he comes around, because we knew he was going to come around and realize that Tarka was no good. But it would have been nice to have him sort of wrestle with that a bit more before we have to rush to the finish line. But no, that scene with Tig and David Ayala is just wonderful.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. I wish that Book had more of a chance to wrestle, with these greater moral questions. Is he doing the right thing? Is he acting out of so much pain and anger and guilt, which we have heard Burnham allude to before, which is why she's been defending him this entire time as he's been making these bad choices. I just think that if you took this episode and again gave it a little bit more runway towards the end, I think that some of these greater character building moments would have had more time to pay off. Give the wick more time to burn, if you will. Yeah.
Do I like sneaky Jet more than I like sarcastic Jet?
Well, I think they're like two sides of the same coin. She's always kind of snarky and whatever, and this is just sort of her applying it in a different way. I did like that licorice was not just a joke, but actually was like the crux of their like plot device. I was like, oh, you actually
and listen,
licorice.
Black licorice is superior.
No, you're wrong. Absolutely wrong. No shot.
That's some contention. I'm just gonna sit back and not have a black licorice while I watch people argue about black licorice, because
I love black licorice. So does my dad. My dad will vote yes for black licorice in the chat as well.
If I had to eat licorice, it would be black licorice. I do not like red Twizzler-y stuff. It's basically, why don't you just give me plastic to chew on? That's the way I feel about it, We have a great deal of callers coming in because it is a two-parter. So, Chris, as much as I'd love to have you here for longer, if you have one more thing that you'd like to say before we have to let you go.
Yeah, I am hopeful that they stick the landing. I think they want to have their cake and eat it too, and that they're going to have like the gunfight with Tarka and then go back to the like arrival stuff and the sort of like compassion heavy sci-fi. Whether or not that'll land, I don't know. That's my prediction, is we're going to kind of like split it between the two sides of like shoot 'em up and what we saw this week. And maybe that'll work, maybe that won't. I don't know. We'll see next week.
Yeah, I mean, that's really going to be a very interesting evening, won't it? So for, this week as Discovery rolls out the final episode, I hope for the best. I'm with you, Chris. I hope for the best. I think that for Star Trek's case, for the fandom in general, I think that if they stick the landing, I think that it shows to the audience at large that Discovery can have both its action side and its introspective side. And I think that if they balance that equation out just a little bit more, maybe in season 5, then I think that we've come to a much better place than, say, where Star Trek Discovery originally started from, which was probably not in the best interest of all fans, but that's just me speaking out loud. I think that with something like this, with this episode, it just felt like very solidly grounded in classic science fiction. So, all righty then. So thanks for calling, Chris. And we have the Vice Admiral on board. Vice Admiral, I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you, sir.
Unmute. There we go.
Good to see you. Yeah, I got it. Holly, Norman, good to see you both.
Hi.
Yes, Norman, you and I haven't talked in a while. So, hey, it's good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, how have you
and
been?
You as well, Holly. I have been good. How about you?
Good. Busy,
you've had some hair growth, I see.
A little bit. It's what happens when they, put me in a box, water me very sparsely, but, allow the nitrates to, to take over.
Of course.
Things like that, and this is just the hair. So yeah. This is, I don't like, sometimes I don't know what to do with this thing. I'm like, is this my thing now? Is this my shtick? Do I tie it back? Do I cut it off? I don't know. I don't know, but that's neither here nor there.
You the Jedi ponytail, maybe?
Maybe I'll do the braid thing, with like a couple of beads, a la Obi-Wan style, since Obi-Wan's coming back. I mean, I got to be someone's Padawan.
Beads?
He used to.
Oh.
He used to.
Back in the Padawan days, way back in the late 90s. Maybe I'll be John's Padawan. I'll be his podcast Padawan. Put some beads in my hair. That's what I'll do.
Seems fair.
Yeah. How did you like this episode? How did you like?
I thought this was the most Star Trek of any Discovery episode we've ever had.
Yeah, I've heard that across the board. On social media and in conversations. What in particular do you think?
I think the fact that we went through an entire problem-solving process and even involve the bridge crew in that, even if they don't get a boardroom or a conference room to do it in, they have to do it on the flight deck, but whatever, or the hangar deck.
Flying by the seat of their pants. I loved when she called them in. I mean,
oh yeah,
because in terms of problem solving, like having more brains on it and more perspectives and more, experience. I mean, who would have thought of the musical sort of, not really connection, but she compared it to music, right?
No, exactly. That's the point. In the past of Trek, we've always needed the rest of the crew to bring some perspective to some of the situations, and that hasn't really happened in Discovery up until recently.
Right. One pair of eyeballs only sees one way.
Yeah, and I appreciate that not the answer, but what kind of gave them a breakthrough came from other members of the crew, and it wasn't just Michael solving the problem.
Yeah, just like last episode where it was Detmer who solved the problem of protecting them from the effects of the hydrocarbons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're finally starting to see that the rest of the crew actually has a place here, as opposed to Michael solves everything.
It was nice that they've earned their position on the ship for a reason. They've earned their position on Discovery originally for a specific reason, stayed on the ship out of survival and circumstance, but they obviously are intelligent. They have been well trained. They understand crisis situations. They understand how to understand perspectives, especially perspectives of the unknown sort of origin. I thought it was nice, and it was great that it didn't have to be again in that kind of like stuffy, stodgy, boardroom type scene. It's like, I need answers and I need them now. Who's got them? Right.
And now you don't even have to walk from the bridge to the hangar deck. You just tap your badge. You're there.
I know, but you really should get your steps in when you can. I mean, that's important. That's important.
Oh my God, yeah, they're not getting steps in.
What? Yeah, they should all be getting a bit pudgy, don't you think?
Remember cardio. You can't outrun the Borg. We'll get to later. You can't outrun the Borg without cardio.
They still have cardio though. That's what the disco shirts are for.
Exactly. Or the Ritos ones. So,
Yeah, Ritos. Yeah, there we go. Ritos.
I really got to get on my t-shirt game. I think that the fans out there have probably started clocking my t-shirts like the way they did Gunny Highway and in Heartbreak Ridge. I have X amount of t-shirts for the course of the week. So ideas, people. Ritos. Or is the Stargazer shirt available? Because I really
like that shirt. Well,
it should just say Gazer.
It does just say Gazer.
Just say Gazer.
Perfect.
I think Drexler has a Gazer shirt.
He does, and on the back is like the schematic that he worked on. So I
think he specially made that. I don't know if it's available. I'm sure it will be.
Is the Proto Star one just going to say Proto?
I hope it just says Pro.
There you go.
But yeah,
Protos. Just stop at S.
That would be amazing. One last thing from you, Vice Admiral, before you have to let you go. I'm so excited with all the callers that we have lined up, but since we have this thing split into Discovery first, Picard second.
Part two.
Oh, fantastic. So we'll recycle through the revolving door of transport technology here.
One more point here, just a quick one. Book's ship, why doesn't he have his own override code for his own bloody ship to stop somebody from trying to take it over?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that too. I was like, he was like, this is my ship to Tarka. And then I was like, okay, but Tarka is holding you hostage now. Maybe we should have some protocols set up.
Or not to drift into the next part of the episode, but set off the self-destruct if you have to.
They should have never have given him 16309 as a combination, like ever. So deep
Fair
cut,
enough.
folks. Deep cut.
Fair
folks.
Enough. All right, guys, let's let somebody else get in here for a while, and I will see you in the second half.
Good seeing you, sir. We'll be seeing you soon. All right.
Take care.
Okay. Alan, what's up, my man?
Hello, Norman.
Hello,
Holly.
sir.
It is good to see you. In the words of that great Romulan toast, slancha.
Slancha, yeah. Chiandan.
Yakada.
I'm just gonna drink without saying anything.
Prost toasts. But yeah, this is the 1 week of the year that I drink Guinness. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Is it because of
St. Patrick's Day?
Move along home?
Oh,
is
yes,
it
of course.
because of Move Along Home?
Because everyone should be drinking.
It takes a 6-pack to get through that one.
It does. But don't do the hopscotch thing, or you're gonna shake the foam off your beer.
I mean, if you're intoxicated enough, I feel like the hopscotch would be funner.
Yeah.
They should do that entire thing at Star Trek Las Vegas and hopscotch run with drinks.
That's
exactly.
happened.
Do it.
Oh, really?
All right.
Oh man,
yes, that's happened. Can we talk about the 10C?
The species as in its own?
Yeah,
themselves?
can I just make 2 points that I enjoy? We officially met them this episode, which is why the whole episode is named after them. Mm-hmm. I appreciate, first of all, that they're a non-humanoid life form. I was really hoping that we would get a non-humanoid life form. So yay. Mm-hmm. Also, Norman, you weren't here last week, but John and I, we were talking about the pheromones and the emotions and like how they are essentially communicate via that sort of in a roundabout way. I mean, we didn't have as much information last week as we do from this week's episode. But what I was concerned about is that the species was going to be sort of cut and dry, whereas like you're either happy or you're sad, but you can't sort of be both. I wanted there to be able to be simultaneous emotions because I feel like most complex organisms that are capable of emotions sometimes feel two conflicting emotions at the same time, two or more. Right. And that was confirmed in this episode that there are simultaneous emotions that these, they're like 12% this and like 3% that. I was like, great. It's not so cut and dry. Those are my 2 points. I enjoy that about the species.
If Pixar has taught us nothing else, it's that you can feel two things at once. There's a whole movie about that. But yeah, and the fact that I liked to with the 10C that first of all, it wasn't just emotion. It wasn't I love Darmok. It's a completely ridiculous situation that they just speak in metaphor. There has to be something else to it. And in this episode, we get at least some of the context of communication through pheromones, is that there is a mathematical component to it as well, at least in the way that they're communicating to us, because we're, stupid bipeds that, don't think like giant tentacle monsters in space do. So, I mean,
but there's an interesting thing that I think is a detriment that Star Trek in general has done to its fan base, and that is the shorthand of visiting strange new worlds and seeking out new life and having that new life speak perfect universal English or universal common immediately. Now, it's episodes like Darmok or some stabs that Hoshi did in Enterprise or this episode where they're trying to establish what real first contact actually would be per alien species that they would meet.
Yeah.
Right. Because this is pretty much what would happen with every single episode of Star Trek ever when they meet a new species, right? Unless it's like a colonized planet that humans, colonized and learned that language. But until you actually have the universal translator matrix established, everything is alien language.
Yeah. Paul, but I just have to interject here. Paul Harveth in the chat says, Alan speaks in memes. Take it easy on Darmok.
I love Darmok. Darmok is a master level of storytelling in 45 minutes. It's arguably my favorite episode. So yes, of course I love it.
It emulates a movie, say like Enemy Mine, with Lou Gossett Jr. and Dennis Quaid, where you're dealing with these two alien life forms that can't speak to each other. So they have to do so in a way that is, stereotypically classic science fiction type tropes, which is fine, but you can't do that. You can't do that in the exposition of a 47 to 48 minute episode where you have to get a point across because nothing would ever happen. Yeah. Which is why it's nice to see it actually in Star Trek doing the Star Trek thing where they're doing something like with V'ger, not understanding that what this alien species is doing isn't necessarily evil or violence, right? That obviously is it's a side effect of the paranoia of, and this is something I wanted to talk about say the two different reactions we're having on the ship. You're having kind of like the peaceful negotiation and interpretation on one side, and then you have like the paranoia and fear and threat with Tarka and Book per se on the other side. Those are always kind of like the two gut reactions that humanity has to something that is the unknown, right? So it's nice to have like the Federation on one side being the explorers and being the interpreters for peace, or trying to, but you always have that darker side of humanity, which is always, how's this going to best serve us, or how do I get out of this situation?
That sabotages us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The paranoia always sabotages the people that are sort of calm and seeking out peaceful negotiation or talks.
Right.
Everything was going so well, you guys. Everything was going so well.
No, everyone on the same page, right? Everyone on the same page. Alan, we have like about a minute here for you, and then we got to get on to Sherry.
Well, I would like to say that in an episode that I loved, and I'm glad that it took a while. I've seen some people online say, "Oh, this stretched a lot," blah blah blah. Oh, they could have done 10C in one episode. BS.
No, I was upset that they did Tarka's background story in one episode. I want the 10C to be several episodes.
Yeah. But yeah, in an episode that I loved, there was one poor downside. Can we talk about the dread pirate Cleveland Booker and like the Vice Admiral said, why he's just picked up the idiot ball for the last 3 weeks? You can't trust Tarka. He's sabotaged you at every point.
Sabotage.
Yeah, I put in my notes, I am shocked that Tarka's willing to kill everyone to get what he wants.
To quote other sci-fi, curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. But yeah, and the fact to the point where you get locked out of your own ship, man. Come on.
Okay, so I'm gonna defend Book in one particular way. And I'm not saying that you're not wrong. I'm just saying that Tarka he's that guy that knows how to change the locks as soon as he walks in the door.
Okay, but Book ran that ship.
He's that guy.
Book ran that ship for a year with Michael, though. She didn't set up any protocols.
I don't know. I'm just saying that he's that guy that he knows how to stick the gum in the keyhole so that he can come back to an unhinged lock later on.
But the black licorice is better, so.
True enough. No, I get that.
Yeah. He stuck the banana in the tailpipe. Yep.
Hey, no.
Oh, a steamed banana.
A steamed banana.
Steamed banana. Yep.
All right, you get your steamed banana point +1 for this round. Are you going to be around for the next round?
I believe so. Yeah. If there's enough time, I'll cycle on through. We'll see how it goes.
All right, Holly, please hit the revolving door and let our parting guests know what they get. They get Sherry.
Yeah, right they get Sherry. Sorry, I was straightening my board cube. I'm wearing a board cube poncho, you guys.
We're gonna get. I can't believe it. It's like so. It's like Fast and Furious. I actually really do feel like kind of like a radio DJ, like getting in celebrities as Sherry is to us, a celebrity.
I thought you were gonna do the Casey Kasem voice again.
No, I'm not sure if that flew over well, like a Led Zeppelin. I'll have to practice. Right. I'm sorry, Sherry. I'm taking your time. I'm stealing your time from you.
Thoughts, Sherry?
Yeah.
So first of all, it just bothered me. Like, why didn't Paul ask Zora where Reno was? He claimed he was looking for her all day. You have a computer that can tell you where people are.
Yeah, I mean, that was that comment was sort of a throwaway right toward the end of the episode where they discover, like, you know, she's not there. Oh, I've been looking for her all day. That's why didn't you say something?
Just like Culver did.
He was getting his steps in. I'm telling you, they're step conscious. Some of these people, they got to be. No, I get it. It's sometimes writers just forget that.
I'm glad that they at least addressed it because I was a little worried they were just going to be like, oh, no one noticed Reno was gone. And I'm like, you better notice Reno's gone. She's awesome.
I liked her MacGyvering the communicator. I thought that was good.
Yeah,
right?
The licorice reminded me of Lower Decks episode where they were stranded on that planet and the replicator would only make black licorice.
Yep. There's the theme. There's the theme.
There's black licorice and the bananas too, the hot bananas and the steamed bananas. Oh, and
I can't remember if you did that podcast, Norma, or if that was John, but I remember Ashley was definitely not on board with me liking black licorice. But Holly and me they don't on the black licorice train.
Black licorice. Listen. If you want like good black licorice, New Zealand makes some really good black licorice. Okay. That's what I will say.
Have you ever had licorice tea, Holly?
I have. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite teas.
Listen, I get really obsessed with certain flavors. Like I'm obsessed with dill right now. Black licorice.
Oh, dill's great.
A fan. Yeah, I just want everything in that flavor. I'm not
all I know is
all you guys.
If whoever was hosting that show, if they were wildly handsome and funny, I will take credit for both. So it may have been John, but I'll take credit for him.
Takechi's like, this is not the first time that we've discussed.
I just remember whoever it was didn't like black licorice either.
It's a very decisive flavor.
It was Ashley and someone who also did not like black licorice.
I'm not a fan of red. Red's not. Yeah, that I can do black licorice. Red, not so much. No.
That's interesting that you're like you could take it or leave it on black licorice because I feel like everybody I've ever met has been either they love it or they hate it and there was no in between and you're a little bit of the in between.
Well, it's kind of like in some of my culture's food, there's like star anise is used a lot and that has a lot of black licorice-esque tendency to it. So being Filipino, so is Jojo Briones. Yes. I just had to say it because I'll get to that in a bit. Just because,
we will get to him.
Yeah. But this is Sherry's time. So the episode, what else did you like?
And I like, so are either of you kind of worried that they're sort of setting it up to kill everybody on book ship? I kind of feel like that's how they're writing it.
I mean, maybe at least Grudge is on the Discovery then.
But Reno's on book ship.
Oh no.
Yeah. I'm like, they had better not kill Reno. Because I'm concerned because like their whole the whole setting the Kobayashi Maru whole thing up and the president telling Michael that basically she can't save everyone, and I feel like this is supposed to be the lesson, and I'm very concerned about, especially Book also finally talking about where his name came from, because that was always like a thing. He's like, oh, to Michael, he'd be like, oh, I'll tell you later or whatever, and like they finally told us.
So why did Reno get the story? And
What if Reno makes it out and she becomes the next book?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right.
As long as he makes it out, I'm sorry.
Well, I think
Reno and the cat. Reno and Grudge.
Your theory is lighting Chad up. Chad's like
Grudge is on the Discovery.
No.
Grudge is
right.
Grudge is on Discovery, which is where I thought she was. I thought that he carried her over there when they split up.
On Discovery.
And she was in a scene where they were screaming, which you know what about this screaming scene, because I wrote this down too.
Speaking of screaming, there's a lot of no's going on in chat right now. That's they're saying it's a little dark, like on their case. No.
Well, I don't want it to happen. I'm worried that it is going to happen.
Although
how narratively it's been set up.
That would make for a great cliffhanger. Wrong. That's a cliffhanger in itself. Like what happens to
they all die? Is that a cliffhanger?
No, it's like something explodes, but we don't know what happens for another 4 months. Just like Riker saying fire,
that would be worse.
And then right?
Yeah. In Best of Both Worlds. God, remember the music behind that fire? Ugh.
Dun dun dun.
Good music. Mm-hmm. So the scene that has Grudge in it, she gets upset because the two of them are screaming as a form of releasing frustration or feeling like they're out of control or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. It works.
It does. So in my grief over Grant passing away, like I remember talking to a couple of my friends and being like, you know what, they were like, what can we do for you? How can we help? I was like, you know what I want to do? I want to go somewhere. I want to go into an empty field where no one's around so they don't think that I'm being murdered or something. And I just want to scream. And I actually Googled the best places to scream in Los Angeles. Because it is a good like release of emotion and frustration. And for them, it was they were talking about how they feel like they lack control.
Yeah.
So.
And screaming is literally like losing all control, but in this case, in a controlled environment. So it's an exercise in being able to kind of harness that and channel it.
Right.
After losing my dad, my therapist told me to go to an ocean and yell like at the vastness of the horizon because there's nothing to return. It just goes and it goes out there and you just kind of cathartically release all of this energy for whatever reason, whatever you need to do it for. And it doesn't judge you in return. Right.
Oh.
So it's an interesting concept of being able to do that because usually energy is, as you give it, you receive it at the same time. That's the theory. But yeah, with I like the whole thing with Book and Saru, because Saru is like the last person you would think, right, to engage in an exercise like that. He is always so by the
poised.
book.
Yeah, he's poised and controlled, right? And that's why I think that it was impactful, is because it is his character that's like, hey, so Tarka taught me this thing, and it's yelling,
and he's teaching her, which is an interesting thing, right?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, keep in mind that she's not half Vulcan. She was raised partially Vulcan, I guess is what you could say. So I'm sure that would absolutely not be accepted as a way to exercise those emotions.
Exactly.
So yeah, it was a great scene.
We have just about a minute here before we have to do our special mid-show thing, Sherry. So are you going to be calling back in, or would you like to get one last point in?
For Picard, but I'll. I already know Holly was not surprised that Tarka would commit genocide. What do you think, Norm?
I think Tarka is a very interesting character because they've done so much so far to create a very interesting, complex, and very layered character. But I don't think that they've given him enough runway for us to accept what he's going to do next, if it's going to be that extreme. So I guess I just have to see if they're going to resolve it in one episode or continue on in some type of a cliffhanger. But I do like the actor who plays Tarka. He plays him very convincingly. He makes you empathize with him and want to kill him at the same time, which I think is a great talent for like any actor to be able to have both of those emotions, both of those reactions happen simultaneously in the same person or from the same person. So we'll see. I hope that this week's episode pays off for everybody. And if it doesn't necessarily conclude this storyline, I hope they do it in a way where it makes sense that they're going to extend it. So we'll see. Yeah.
I hope not when one dies.
Yeah. But I'm sure that Holly and John will be able to field that question if and when it happens next week.
We'll see.
All right. Thanks, Sherry.
I want to give one last fun fact before we move on to the half. So in this episode, the organization NETI is mentioned, which they're only, I don't know, like 7 years old. But Burnham brings up NETI. And what I enjoy about that is that Anson Mount is a board member on NETI now.
What?
Yeah.
Our captain.
Yeah. So that's
captain.
a fun little connection that I
very cool. All right. So something special that we're going to talk about now. Everyone, you might want to pay attention to this because this is pretty cool. First of all, if you want to win your own copy of the Star Trek Picard audio drama, No Man's Land, simply follow us on Twitter if you're not already following us, and then use hashtag MissionLogLive and the book title, and we'll announce a winner on the show every Monday night for 6 weeks, starting right now, today, right after we do some brand identification for the book. But before we announce our winner, Holly's going to tell all of you a little more about all of this.
Yeah, I'm excited. I got it on my Audible the other day. Okay, so No Man's Land, it takes place between seasons 1 and 2 of Picard. 7 of 9 and Raffi are enjoying some much needed R&R. They're interrupted by an urgent cry for help. They team up to rescue a mysteriously ageless professor who is endangered by a vicious Romulan warlord. And our lead characters tentatively explore the attraction hinted at in the finale of Picard season 1. Mm-hmm. It's an original, fully dramatized Star Trek adventure written and produced exclusively for audio. So you can only get this on audio stuff. It's complete with authentic sound effects for a fully immersive and seamless experience. So it's the work of Kirsten Beyer, who we love. Well, I love her. She's the co-creator, writer, and producer for Picard. And then Mike Johnson, who is a veteran contributor to Star Trek comic books, published he's done a lot with IDW, who is the current licensee for Star Trek. He put me in a Star Trek comic book. Thanks, Mike.
Oh, fantastic.
I've been in a couple, but he was the first one to put me in and like give me a name, and like, yeah, it was very exciting. So
awesome.
We like Mike too. Okay, so Jerry Ryan obviously plays 7 of 9. Michelle Hurd is Raffi. It's a full cast audio dramatization. Host of talented actors playing all new characters. So we get some new characters in this. Mm-hmm. Fred Tatasciore is in it. You guys know him as Lieutenant Shax from Lower Decks. So that's cool. I'm glad that the Star Trek realm is giving him some more work. These storylines have long been their challenged assumptions and contributed to real world cultural progress. There's same-sex attraction. Basis of No Man's Land continues this tradition. So some interesting concepts that Star Trek has started to explore and will continue to explore, which we appreciate. It's published with the full support and participation of Star Trek, CBS, and Paramount, and their creative and promotional teams.
Just to string out the announcement just a little bit longer, because I know you're all on the edge of your seat if you're sitting in a seat. And are you a fan of audiobooks, Holly? Do you like it? Do you enjoy?
I am. I have Audible. I have Audible. I have a bunch in my library. I think the last Star Trek one that I downloaded, again, not to toot my own horn, but it's a novel that I'm my character's in. But yes, I have many. Well,
see, the interesting thing about some audiobooks is some do kind of like the full Monty, where you have the actors. Well, sometimes you don't even get the actors, the acting talent, official acting talent to read their own characters is very, very, very particular.
Yeah.
It's a very special thing. So getting Jerry Ryan and Michelle Hurd to do their characters is fantastic. But also, if you're not a book reader, but you want to say put it in your car or listening to it at the office or, whatever you're doing at home, and you can actually hear the same sound effects they're using in Picard, like the same soundscape that they're using in Picard. When you watch it, the Picard, and then you listen to this, it's one seamless experience. That's what you want. Like, you don't want to say like, oh, that audiobook wasn't nearly as good as the production on the series. That's not this case. This is literally listening to an episode.
Right. And what I appreciate about audio stuff just in general is, when I watch a new episode of Star Trek, like obviously not just from the fan standpoint, but from the fact that I'm on this show, I'm like, I have to pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. Audiobooks you can put on in the background. And while, obviously you have to be listening to like acknowledge what's happening, you don't have to like focus on the visual aspect of it, which sometimes is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can actually get and maybe a little bit more into the nuances of the performance, which again is always great when you have the actual actors reprising their roles. So with all that said and done, tonight, the first of the next 6 weeks, tonight, week 1, tonight's winner is Paul William Gregory.
Yay!
So congratulations, Paul William Gregory. We will get in touch with you. We will make sure that you get your audiobook. And if you want to get your own copy in the next 5 weeks, please remember to follow us at Mission Log Pod on Twitter. Use the hashtag MissionLogLive for your chance to win a copy of No Man's Land here on the next 5 weeks of Mission Log Live. This is where you're going to get your copy if you win, and you're going to hear all about it even more in the weeks ahead. So good luck, everyone. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Make sure you use a hashtag, and we hope that you win because this is going to be amazing.
Good luck.
Good luck. So part 2, we are into the back half. We are at the bottom of the 7th. We're the back half of the show, and Norm is up at bats.
You're doing all sorts of announcers. Now you're a baseball announcer.
I know, it's a thing, right? I told you I really needed this caffeine to kick in, and it has. So it's part 2 of this 2-part doubleheader, and we're going to go right into the recap of Star Trek Picard Season 2, Episode 2, Penance. Immediately following the revelations from the Stargazer, Q has revealed to Jean-Luc a new version of home. As Jean-Luc's senses clear, he realizes his world is in fact different. The winery is filled with terrified Romulan slaves, skies above are covered with force field generators, and the internal decor is grotesque and complete with the skulls of Gul Dukat, General Martok, Ambassador Sarek, and others in his correction, General Jean-Luc Picard's collection of slain enemies. And Q once again reminds Picard that the trial never ends. Setting into General Picard's study, Jean-Luc familiarizes himself with this new world order. In this world, in this time, the Federation has established a pure universe where savage civilizations and warlike alien worlds have been subjugated or conquered in favor of a safer, more human galaxy. Harvey, General Picard's synthetic servant, reminds him that he's due in San Francisco to join the president for Eradication Day. Speaking of the president, 7 of 9 also wakes to her world turned upside down. After proving to herself that she's not dreaming, she quickly assimilates into her new identity so she doesn't cause suspicion. In this reality, she is Annika Hansen, president of the Confederation and married to an extremely militant and paranoid magistrate. Stumbling her way through her new reality, she uses her presidential authority to contact Chris, that is, Colonel Cristobal Rios, who is currently squashing a Vulcan uprising. 7 and Chris both reveal that the last thing they remember was being on the Stargazer before it self-destructed. And much is the same for Raffi, Elnor, and Agnes, as they have all awakened within their own mirror-like version of themselves in this upside-down, hostile, violent, paranoid, and humanity-first confederation. They all try to uphold their new identities, much like 7, so as not to raise suspicions, especially with the magistrate, who, aside from being married to the president, is a very sharp, detail-oriented, and dangerously observant individual. In Agnes's laboratory, all is revealed, however, as she, or rather, this timeline's Agnes, has been experimenting on what remains of the Borg Queen, also last seen on the Stargazer before it self-destructed. When General Picard arrives, he is brought to see the Queen, who reveals that time is broken, which forces Jean-Luc to confess to his friends what Q told him earlier at the chateau. With all of the pieces in place, Picard and his crew know that time has been altered and that Q has affected a specific point in the past, and they need to find a way to time travel in order to fix where, or specifically when, this all went wrong. After appeasing the bloodthirsty mob for Eradication Day, which is the Confederacy's anniversary to celebrate the elimination of human threats, both alien and domestic, Picard and 7 delay the proceedings long enough to steal the Borg Queen, who is in fact the centerpiece of Eradication's Day exterminations. She has the technical ability to calculate time travel. Picard and his crew were saved at the last moment by an emergency beam out to La Serena, where Rios is standing by in orbit. However, before they can escape, the magistrate beams on board, guns down Elnor and plans to execute them all, especially Picard, the Borg Slayer, as traitors to the Confederacy. The end. But the trial never ends. Dramatic.
Nice. Thank you. Very dramatic.
Wow.
I had a friend who is a casual Star Trek fan text me Friday, so a day after this episode premiered, and he was like, Did you watch it? That was good television.
Good.
I'm so glad you're enjoying it. And then he actually asked me what Q episodes he should watch.
Oh,
2
well.
or 3. So I suggested him some Q episodes.
Deja Q?
No, actually, obviously, I suggested the pilot and
sure, of course.
I mean, to understand the whole trial thing, the pilot and the finale, a nice bookend.
Right. Sure.
Interestingly enough, I thought that from the standpoint of understanding his relationship with Picard, I said
Tapestry.
Watch Tapestry. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. That's probably like the most intimate, I think, as opposed to impish. Impish Q versus, I'm going to get up in all your business Q.
Yeah. So anyways, I appreciated that there are people that, are not like hardcore Star Trek fans like me saying that they thought this was a great episode. So yay. I
have to be 100% completely honest with the audience. Something that I brought up to Holly's attention and to
Norman
Earl's.
is real angry about something.
Yeah, I am. And I don't really, I don't like coming down too hard on certain Star Trek things. I'm usually a very open-minded, positive, optimistic Star Trek fan, except for this one thing that I saw in this episode that lit my fuse.
Which you also have a personal relationship to why you're upset. So explain.
So in a nutshell, I enjoyed this episode, but one thing happened that really set me off, and that was the mirror universe, if I can say that. The Confederacy. I'm going to call it what it is. The Confederacy's comm badge being used as a throwing weapon. That to me, and I'm going to say it out loud, that to me was probably one of the most ridiculous things I have ever seen in the history of Star Trek ever. Period. That's just me. I have an affinity towards, medieval weapons, throwing weapons, bladed weapons, things of that nature. It just didn't seem to fit anything ever in the history of Star Trek. So that's just me. So I just want to get it off my chest. I appreciate everyone indulging me on that negativity, but that's just my problem with that. I don't like it at all. But what I do like, I love seeing John Briones.
Yeah.
As the magistrate.
Magistrate is
the president's husband.
Yeah. He is the father of Sophie,
Issa,
though.
Yeah.
Issa.
Yep. So it's kind of like all in the family kind of thing. And he is a Broadway singer, a famous Broadway singer of his own accord.
Yeah, he was in Miss Saigon.
Yes, he was. He was the engineer in Miss Saigon.
I love Miss Saigon. I was never in a production of it, but I had some friends in high school that were in a production of it. It's a lovely show.
Can I ask you something? I want to ask you and the audience one thing. Why is it when you have kind of like these mirror universe-esque tropes, and it's not just in Star Trek, but it happens in science fiction all the time. Why is it that when you're on the side of good, when you're like in the normal universe, like you're in the Navy, i.e. like Admiral Picard, the naval kind of nomenclature, and when you go evil, you go Army, like General or Colonel? Why is it? Why is that? Like, can't you have an evil Admiral? Can't you have an evil, Captain, Commodore?
I never noticed that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Right?
Well, I mean, I feel like the Navy nomenclature is something that Gene was set on doing. I don't know why that's a good point.
Isn't that strange? And it doesn't happen just in Star Trek. It happens like in science fiction and weird kind of like altered realities. Just if you want to make someone more evil, you turn them more land-based military as opposed to sea-based military. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, the fact that it's in different kinds of sci-fi or whatever, not just Star Trek. I mean, I was going to suggest that they're just picking like the opposite of the naval titles that Gene was introducing and liked for everybody in Starfleet. Well, but if it happens in other stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't, right now I can't, immediately sum it up, but I say, for instance, in Babylon 5, the good guys were Navy based. And then there were a couple of bad guys that were part of the storyline that were Army based. So They were like the bad guys in the situation. Like,
but just in terms of their titles. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Right. Huh.
And their motivations. So so now you have, instead of Admiral Picard, you have General Picard. You have General Sisko, which is actually kind of cool to hear.
Oh God, there was a lot of mentions of character. Well, Sisko gets mentioned in dialogue. But
and there were a lot of Deep Space Nine references. I mean, you had Gul Dukat, you had Martok, you had Sisko.
Oh my God, you guys, let's get into this because there's so many deep. So
let's do it.
Sisko is mentioned in dialogue. Mm-hmm. The computer that, what do I call her? President Hansen, Annika? I don't know. 7 is, going back and forth between. Miles O'Brien is on there.
He is.
Tasha Yar is on there. So Tasha's alive. And I think she has something to do with Andorian. I saw it very quickly. So I think she has something to do with the Andorian uprising. And Tuvok is commander of Vulcan forces. So that's exciting.
Which are at war with the Confederation.
Right. Yeah. That's what we see Rios in when they're having an uprising. And then, I mean, the skulls are also a deep cut too, right? So there's a Ferengi, and they actually don't say who it is, but there's a plaque underneath it. It's Zach.
Wasn't me.
And the fact that we find out that they have bones in their ears, I don't know why I thought that was wild. So a lot of people
That's what makes the umlauts feel better.
So many voices tonight.
I know, it's the caffeine. Sorry.
A lot of people thought that the Borg skull is Hugh, which the eyepiece matches, but the thing underneath it, the little plaque, says that it's his designation is 1 of 2, and Hugh is 3rd of 5. So I don't think that it's Hugh. But obviously, we get Gul Dukat is called out. Martok is called out. Sarek is called out. Sarek was executed by Picard in front of his wife and son, who we know is Amanda and probably Spock. It's not going to be Sybok, right? It's going to be Spock. The thing that I enjoyed about his skull, if no one noticed, is that Sarek's skull is slightly tinted green.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
It's green.
That's awesome. It makes sense.
Because their blood is green, and they even get called out as green-blooded, whatever.
Yeah.
It's derogatory.
It's interesting that it, with him murdering Sarek, puts a whole kind of canonical spin on reunification, right? So yeah.
Anyways, many call outs, many deep cuts, many references. I appreciate it.
Before we jump into the callers, any other things you want to bring up? Because we have probably a lot to talk about with our callers with this episode.
Last point I think that I would like to point out, because I think everything else is probably going to come up naturally. Spot 73.
Yeah.
Obviously a Data Spot reference. Mm-hmm. More so, Patton Oswalt is the voice.
Right.
Yeah, Patton.
So we have a filibustering animated cat, which is going to be amazing, right? Because that cat could go on. Spot 73 can go on.
Yeah.
In eternity, talking about Star Trek.
And Patton Oswalt is a huge Star Wars fan, but I appreciate that he's in my favorite Pixar film. He's Remy in Ratatouille. I love him. I think he's fantastic, and I'm so glad.
His geek cred is.
Yeah, he's got amazing geek cred. So yay.
Here's one thing I want to throw out there for chat, for Chris also is, and this is kind of it's a hot button topic, but hey, we're here. Let's talk about some hot button topics. Is Picard really only about 3 elements anymore? Picard, the Borg, and Noonien Soong.
I mean, we do see a Soong in this, and we do have a Borg, and that's why I'm dressed up as a Borg cube.
To the whole poncho thing, give us the full effect, Holly.
Oh, it's a
look at that. It's a cube. Come on, people.
You can't see it.
Let's get some applause here. Oh, now you're cloaked. Now you're back.
I didn't even change my background either. I got to change my background. Hold on, you guys.
So we've seen, we have seen in the snippets of the previews, we've seen Q interact with a version of a Soong, which is Brent Spiner. Right. We know Brent Spiner's in. These are no spoilers. But the thing is that you have these elements now. Is it always going to have to be Picard and the Borg to make a Picard story interesting? Does it always have to have the Borg in it?
I mean, I hope not. They're an interesting species, right? And they're a huge part of Picard's psyche experiences and how he reacts to things. But
it's just one of those questions. I'm like, there's a lot of other things I would like to see explored, or maybe new things. So it's always ever since First Contact, well, not ever since Best of Both Worlds, really, it's always a return to the Borg in some type of way, shape, or form. And is it because it's just sexy marketing driving the ratings?
I don't know. Well, I mean, obviously the Borg are familiar. People you see me getting excited over references, and there's a fine line between me being like, oh, I'd like them to explore something new. I would. I also appreciate the references and the callbacks and stuff like that. So,
sure.
I would wonder how those conversations would go in the writer's room. Like, is anybody like, are we going to do the Borg again? Can we not?
Yeah, it's one of those kind of, let's put like all of our ideas out and then put two things out here. Borg, well, one thing really. Borg, cross the line through it. No Borg, go.
But what I will say about the way that the Borg is being used so far is that I feel like that might not be the main focus, because ultimately, like, what they're trying to do is go back to 2024, figure out what Q did, and they were told to find the Watcher. Like, who's the Watcher? Probably not going to be a Borg. Could be Guinan.
That's why I'm not going like way down into it right now. I'm just throwing that out there as food for thought.
I would appreciate them using the Borg the way that they are now, if that's not the central focus. And I don't think that it will be.
Okay. I mean, I hope not, where it's not hinging on, or leaning too heavily on, this is the reason why the Borg are here. We'll see. So, I mean, there are 11, 12 episodes left, 11 episodes left.
Right.
So a lot of storytelling to happen. So let's jump right into it with Chris. Chris, the revolving door has brought you back to us.
That's right. Once again, well, first and foremost, I will gladly join Holly in the Spot 73 fan club. If he doesn't come back later this season, I will be very in Alex Kurtzman because that's just too good to pass up. I love Patton Oswalt. I love the cat. Give me cat merch. Give it to me.
The cat merch. But it's gonna be a thing. It's gonna be like a wall cling that can stick on like a window or something.
Ooh, right. Yeah. Or just I want like an app, like a fake Siri, and it just like has like 20 like Patton Oswalt lines that just like cycles through.
And then at the end of everything, he says meow.
Disaffected meow. Meow.
Look how quick Holly is with the background change. Look at that.
Oh yeah. Now I'm in Picard study.
Exactly. Yeah.
But my thing is, everyone seems to think, with somewhat good reason, that Q is the one doing these shenanigans. I would like to play devil's advocate here that maybe Q is not doing at least all of the shenanigans. When they first show up, and Picard's like, "What'd you do, my guy? What'd you do?" And Q says, the line I fixated on was, "I am a suture in the wound." Which to me says that Q is trying to fix something. That he maybe didn't create this bad timeline, or didn't create all of it, and that he needs Picard's help to right whatever temporal thing has gone wrong.
And Picard's question is, are you unwell? And the look on Q's face when I think he's trying to like calculate what his response is going to be was very telling. That like there's obviously more to this than we're being.
Very
this is not just Q shenanigans. In John Luke's words, I'm too old for your BS. And I was like, oh,
love that. I love that they can cut loose with at least that much vulgarity, for something like that.
Yeah, because when he said that, I was like, same. I hope this is not just Q being Trelane again, like just messing around for the sake of messing around because he's a child. Like there's something else going on.
If Q needs help from Picard, because Q's power is, as far as we know, infinite, then that has to be a power level that is as powerful as the Q or more than, right? Because Q, if he needs help, he can't overcome whatever outside entity is challenging his power. A suture in a wound to Q is like Q snaps his fingers and then writes all time. He's done it before, right? So, I mean, we've seen Q's power and the vastness of it until he's met up against other Q.
I punched my microphone. I'm sorry.
Because there was an episode in Voyager where the Q and the Gray, when he's battling other Q and he's hurt by the weaponry, simulated weaponry of what Janeway understands is the power of other Q that are in civil war. So yeah, that's possible. Also, interesting thing, and I'm not sure if it's actually a physical attribute for John Delancey because of his age, but I was really fixated on the blemishes in Q's eyes. Like there was when Picard was saying that there's something wrong with Q, take a look at the whites of his eyes.
Yeah, he has a mark over here. I thought that was just John Delancey aging.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It might be, but if they're playing into it, they really used very specific zoom ins and lighting to show that there's something literally behind Q's eyes.
Yeah.
That's affecting him.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was reading into it. If it was in fact like something digitally enhanced, or or they're enhancing something that's already part of John Delancey. I'm going to say something that's probably controversial again about Picard, but because of Patrick Stewart's age, rarely have I ever seen any other actors actually go or even steal scenes away from Patrick Stewart. And John Delancey murdered his scenes.
His delivery of the line about it being a penance, scared me.
Yeah, he was on another level, a completely other level. And I know that Patrick's age is a factor. He doesn't have the voice anymore. He just doesn't have that presence that Picard has, that was usually steal the scene back from a John Delancey or from other actor. But wow, that was his moment. Like John Delancey had his moment. That was his moment as Q, as far as I was concerned. Yeah,
Delancey is killing it. I mean, just everything about obviously quoting Shakespeare and Through a Mirror Darkly and washing your hands.
Yeah, so there's 3 episodes that he mentions.
So it's Yesterday's Enterprise, it's Mirror Darkly, and what's the third one?
Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Oh,
which are all mirror episodes.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it was smart stuff. One last thing for you, Chris, before we have to let you go and get to some other callers here.
Yeah, one fun little detail that I've noticed is that on the sort of back-end production side, Q's snap now has this kind of like ominous thunk behind it, whereas in TNG it was like the kind of like...
Oh yeah, it's a little bit more playful in TNG.
A door slamming. Yeah. Here it's very, very, again, to the menacing, sort of ominous. Like every time he does it, it's like, oh man, that something just happened. He means business.
Well, they leave very little to chance when it comes to a lot of these details. So it's very well possible that when Picard said there's something wrong this time with Q, I've seen Q before. This isn't the same, happy-go-lucky, mischievous, impish, devilish Q. I've seen him at his worst, and I've seen him at his most playful, and this is neither of them. Right. So it'll be interesting to see. And I hope, we get to see more of John Delancey, because this is the turn for Q that I have not yet seen. And I think that's really refreshing to see that he's taken a character that has had a handful of episodes and great amount of success, in the fandom of Star Trek. But rarely do you see these characters elevate after a certain point in time. Seeing Guinan last week, I mean, it was great to see Whoopi, but Guinan really hasn't changed. Even when we saw her in Generations to now, she really hasn't changed as Guinan. She's very even keel. She's the same note, and it's a great note. But
that's why Picard seeks her out too, by the way.
Because of her consistency.
Right.
But this Q was like, I want to see more. I want to see where he's going to go with this. So I'm excited. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you calling in again.
All right. Yeah. Have a good one. Stay safe.
All right, man. You too.
Did he call in again, or is it we just chilling in the Earl Green room?
He's in the Earl Green rotating doorway. Yeah. And so is the Vice Admiral, who's up on deck. Back at it for the back half of the episode. So what's happening?
Hello again, both of you. How are you again? Have you had a great half hour?
So far, so good. The caffeine is working. So I blame everything on it.
As do I.
Yeah.
So let's continue what you were just talking about, Norman and Holly, mainly Norman. There was we know that it looks like there's something going on with Q.
Yeah.
There were enough shots that made it clear that we should be focusing on his distress or non-normalness.
I will be so impressed if that is on purpose. Because I genuinely was just like, oh, John Delancey just has, a mark in his eye.
But let me ask. The episode's name was Penance.
Mm-hmm.
And Q went to a lot of trouble to say that somehow the Penance is Picard's. But how is that possible?
Yeah, I thought that too. I was like, does he not know what a penance is? Because it's self-imposed.
Maybe he did something in the past that he is bringing Picard in to help with, and the penance is really his, and maybe that's what's going on. Maybe something caused him to either lose his place, lose his power, have some other crippling effect that he really desperately needs the only person he can count on in all the bloody galaxy to help him.
I'm surprised that when he saw Picard, he didn't say something along the lines of, "It's not really you in there, is it?" Or "It's not really you," because this is the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time that Q has seen synthetic Picard. This is not
You're correct. But he did reference it in the beginning of this, and when they were doing the skull thing, and he said Gul Dukat was the reason.
Yes, Gul Dukat is the reason you're in that synthetic body now. Yeah.
Admiral Picard is.
Yes.
Okay, but
but in this timeline,
right,
Picard is also a synthetic,
right,
and it's because of
what Gul Dukat did.
Yes, which we don't know what it is. It just got mentioned passing when he was talking about his.
Yeah, I thought that was a little clunky myself.
It was. Well, it was, but it lets us keep the synthetic body with just a lamppost kind of. Oh look, sure. You're in a synthetic body.
Okay, I can buy that. I mean, it's exposition for the sake of moving the story forward. But this Q, it's maybe he always sees himself kind of joined at the hip with Picard. It's like, if I'm in trouble, you're in trouble. If I'm going to get myself out of it, you're going to get me out of it. Maybe because they have such a shared, checkered, interesting past together.
Why is he so fixated on Picard? I always wonder in the time period, because again, you mentioned that we only see Q in a handful of episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was basically thrown in as a time lengthening character for the pilot, which got bumped from an hour to an hour and a half. And that was a whole thing in 1986, 1987. What's Q doing in between everything when he's not messing with? Does he have the same fixation on someone else, like in between? Like, is he causing this amount of chaos in somebody else's life at all?
Well, I wanted to have children with Janeway. Right. So, I mean, at one point in time, that's the thing is, when you have these kind of like these nonlinear temporal beings that are omnipresent, omnipotent, omni-everything, omni-plot armor, you can write anything that you want because they are your trap door. I mean, let's be honest, right? You create characters like this because you can write yourself out of any situation with a snap of your fingers. I don't think that anyone out there in the audience sees it for anything else other than that. Of course they can be great characters. Of course they can be written well. Of course they can be performed well, but they can also be used as a tool to serve a purpose. And that is to create the exposition of the story. But in this case, though, I mean, at least the writers are giving Q something new, something different, and definitely darker. I mean, this is a dark Q. I mean, we've seen Delancey at dark before. We've seen him threatening before, but we haven't seen him kind of unhinged, right? That's kind of terrifying, right? Seeing an unhinged Q.
Or desperate.
Desperate. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, desperate Q, which is forcing him to do things he probably has never wanted to or thought of doing before, like say, maybe beg for Picard's help. Maybe he's trying to maneuver Picard instead of asking him for help because Q's too big to ask for help.
I don't think he knows how to ask for help, but he knows how to find Picard. And he knows how to make him do things by changing his world into something he absolutely abhors.
So he's creating a scenario so that Picard chases another scenario to right whatever wrong that happened, because Q can't just say I messed something up. Can you help me?
That's what I think that's probably it. Yeah.
Ooh, so the idea that Q has too much pride to just be like, oh, I messed up.
Right.
Is also interesting.
Maybe he can't even do that. Maybe the rest of the continuum, if he were to admit it, would do something to him that he can't allow.
I mean, we did see him punished at one point.
Exactly. And he knows that he didn't like that, right?
Right.
When his powers were stripped from him, right?
Yeah, that's the episode where he's just like naked.
Getting all naked, right? Yeah. So it's I mean, there's a lot of story to get to, but I think my bigger concern, do you feel like the writers at this stage, though the writers that are handling Picard, finally are trying to maybe overcorrect that Next Generation never had a mirror universe episode?
I mean, potentially, because but more than TNG, I would have liked to see Voyager in the mirror universe, which we have now in the comic books. But, yesterday's Enterprise was about as close as we got. And then Year of Hell is as close as we got. And Voyager, Year of Hell should have been an entire season.
Well, that was the plan. It was supposed to be an entire season, right?
It should have been. They should have stuck to that.
But for all intents and purposes, I mean, you're really like one logo away from the Terran Empire.
Right. But I mean, I also feel like in terms of when they're deciding to do this, if the reason why they're like, oh, we've never done, like a mirror type, and not like the mirror universe is a very particular universe that we talk about, right? Like, I don't think this is the mirror universe. It's not Terran Empire. Like, that's not where we are.
No, I'm not saying that they're making one. I'm saying that
we're just in an alternate reality, which is not something that they fleshed out in TNG.
Yeah, you're saying you think that they've gone out and on way too far to say, yeah, we should have had a mirror episode in TNG. We didn't. So here's our apology.
Kind of. Yeah. Right.
But because timing wise, like we just did this in Discovery and we all talked about how like, can we be done in the mirror universe? Can we just get on with it?
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. It's not necessarily like the gold plated mirror universe that we saw with, Michelle Yeoh and, right. Captain Georgiou or Empress Georgiou. But it's a different one. So, I mean, I buy, kind of like the super fascist, all black clad, Delta throwing regime that this is far more as a mirror universe episode than the mirror universe episode that they put in Star Trek Discovery. I mean, it's also the alternate universe we need for today's real world.
Right. No because this is absolutely not even a question about it. This is a statement. Which, sure. I mean, most of Star Trek is a political statement. So.
It is. No, it's definitely a statement piece for sure. Yeah. It's just, like I said, it's the one thing that was missing from the TNG equation that makes it formulaic from a series standpoint is one thing. And that was the mirror universe per se.
Right.
But it looks like we're only going to get one episode of this before we move into the past to try to fix it.
But 2024 could be, I mean, that's when the Bell riots happen. That's when Sisko travels back in time. Like and that episode was a statement too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's not to say that the statements are going to end, right? Because if they're going to LA in 2024, like I expect there to at least be some reference to what we already know about Earth 2024.
And we're going to have a Soong, apparently, who's Earth first.
Right.
Yeah, that's my other big question. So you have Picard, and then you have the Borg, and now you have another character named Soong, which is also prevalent in much of Picard's storytelling.
Right, Soong, and we don't know Adam Soong. We don't know who he is. I mean, I assume that he's.
Well, there's a statue of him. That's all we know, right?
Yeah, I assume that. I mean, obviously he's a Soong, but like, is he son of who?
But it's kind of like, how many Skywalkers can we relate the story to, right? You're going to have this Skywalker or that Skywalker. Apparently. Like, exactly. Of course. Yes.
You know what? You know what makes me sad though is that if Adam Soong is like a grandson or something of Noonien, like, I mean, Data had to exist, right? Because they still have synthetics that were basically made in after Data, like they could only make those synthetics because of Data. So like Data had to have existed in this timeline, right?
Same with Picard's synthetic body. That shouldn't exist without
without Data
or Beta or Lore.
Because my first thought was like, if Noonien had like a son and a grandson, then maybe he wouldn't have felt it necessary to build the sons that he had, right? Which would have been B4, Lore, and Data. Mm-hmm. And I was like, if Data doesn't exist, then I don't like that. But the synthetics are there. The golem is like, Picard still has a golem body. So like he had to have existed. But we still don't know who Adam is. And I like Brent Spiner. So I'm excited to figure out.
I'm happy to see him. Yeah, no doubt.
I have no problem. Kind of like I said, the casting, seeing like all of the nostalgic casting, it's great. I think it's working for me so far. It's just that, again, when you have the opportunity to open the playing field to more opportunities, they seem to always kind of gravitate towards very similar like posts to lean on, So is that necessarily being creative, or is that being smart?
I guess, I mean, I don't really have an answer for that because we're only 2 episodes in. I want to see how much more.
A lot of this is just food for thought for out there.
For the rest of the season.
We have a very short amount of time.
Yep, and I should go, so you get one more in. But I do want to say one thing before I go, Norman, Holly.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Is Patton Oswalt not the best animated cat in the universe?
I think so.
Yeah.
I want one.
I think so.
I want one.
Let's talk to JVC and make it happen. Everyone out there, bombard him with Twitter and say, like, we want our spot 43. 73.
73. Right, oh, why didn't they make it spot 47?
That's what I'm saying. Like 47.
Exactly. That would have been best.
Yeah.
Well, at some point, presumably there was a spot 47 because we're on 73. Anyways,
this is
True.
All right.
All right, guys. Hey, great talking to you, and have a great night. And I will talk to you again soon.
Good seeing you again, sir.
Take care, both of you.
All righty. We
Bye.
have the lightning round with Alan and Sherry. Alan's up first. So about a minute or two here before we rotate that spinning door.
Well, yeah. And unfortunately, I don't have a whole heck of a lot to say about Picard specifically. A lot of my comments were Discovery tonight, so I'm glad I got to spend more time there. But you guys were just talking about whether this qualifies as next gen's answer to the mirror universe. I don't necessarily have an opinion on that one way or the other, but I just want to commend the producers in one episode for making a dystopia that's a hell of a lot scarier and a hell of a lot more grounded and realistic feeling than what we've gotten in Discovery. And frankly, a lot of what we got in Deep Space Nine with the mirror universe. I mean, just, Mission Log has covered the mirror universe pretty thoroughly, about it being this idea that was good once and that, had subsequently kind of been driven into the ground by Deep Space Nine, resurrected a little bit by Discovery again, like you guys just said, kind of driven into the ground again. But man, maybe it's the skulls, maybe it's Eradication Day, and I honestly, I think it's mostly the fact that it was on Earth with real people cheering it on that made it scary. So
yeah, that was intense.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Agreed. When you put that kind of reality into the situation, it gives it a lot more immediacy, a lot more brutality to it. That I think that a lot of us are starting to recognize, out there in the news spaces. So
exactly. That's my serious reaction. Funny reaction is that because this seems to happen a lot, it really does seem like Star Trek's or Starfleet must have some sort of protocol for what to do if you wind up in a fascist dictatorship. Because Picard and especially Raffi and Seven kind of slipped into it pretty easily. Rios was a little bit disoriented, but he was in a battle. Poor Agnes and Eleanor were a little bit left out to.
They missed Starfleet improv class that night.
Yeah,
exactly.
How to ask questions correctly to get the right information, but not seem like you're clueless as to what's going on. I feel like Seven did a good job at that.
Yep.
All right, Alan, we're gonna have to let you go. We have to rotate to Sherry before the end of the hour here.
No worries. Have a good night, guys.
All right, thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
And lastly, we have Sherry.
She's
Welcome
at the
back.
Borg now.
Oh, you've been assimilated. Oh no.
Yes.
Kind of.
No, they're sleeping.
Oh, they are sleeping. Okay.
She's not a threat. She's not a threat.
All right. Hate to have you on so late with not enough time. So
rattle off your thoughts.
Yeah. Kind of like rapid fire. This is lightning round for you.
Well, I'm just wondering if you two think that they're going to tie in all the DS9 stuff with 2024.
God, I hope they do. That'd be, listen, I want that.
Oh, you're talking about with future tense and with,
yes.
Yeah, with the Bell riots.
Yes.
I think that's probably why that they made so much mention of like Deep Space Nine characters early, so that they can start seeding that idea with the fans. I mean, it only makes sense.
What if the Watcher is Gabriel Bell?
Oh my God! Could you imagine if Avery Sisko comes back?
The Traveler could be the Traveler, which is not related to the Bell riots. What if it's Wesley Crusher?
That would be cool. Will would be excited, right? But seriously, what if Picard's greatest kept secret right now is Avery Brooks returning to TV?
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
They did mention General Sisko.
Right? That would blow people's minds. Or even maybe Sid. Because Sid was there.
Oh, don't get me started. Oh my God. Because he was there too. If they bring back Bashir, I'm going to lose my mind.
Right. I said that just for you, Holly. Just for you. Because I know how much.
I wonder if they're going to do a trials and tribulations thing and just like intersperse the old footage with the new footage.
Oh yeah, I mean, they could do that they could do it back then. Even they can do it today. I mean, the only reason why I think that they will tie it in is because, listen, I understand that they chose a year that's close to the year that we're in now, so that they could use Los Angeles as a backdrop and not have to really change anything. But like specifically 2024, I was immediately like, I hope that it has. If it has nothing to do with that it's at least mentioned, and like maybe we'll like see it off in the background or something.
Mm-hmm. Michael in chat said, "And the Sanctuary District was referenced in the trailer."
Oh,
so
I'm excited. Let's
shake the magic 8 ball and see what happens. All signs might point to yes. We don't know, and we have 11 episodes left to see if our dreams come true of seeing a lot of Deep Space Nine getting tied back into it. So that was a great question, Sherry. I think that's a fantastic question and answer to end the show on. And I can't believe that, again, I always say this because I'm surprised we can fill an hour so quickly, but an hour and a half and 2 shows and a fantastic ad for a fantastic audiobook. Who'd have thunk? That's what we do here on Mission Log Live. So Holly, any last parting thoughts for the audience leading into this week's episode?
That I don't have any last parting thoughts. I think I've rattled off all of my disjointed thoughts in my notes. I'm very excited.
Can I ask one very quick question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go.
What happened to the other 72 spots?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Data files. They're in data files.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're on a USB stick somewhere. Maybe they're on a comm badge, thrown against a wall. Who knows? I don't know.
Product development could release each one of them. They could be limited edition. And whoever NFTs. Oh no, don't do NFTs. I don't understand them.
I don't understand them either. I don't know why I said those 3. I blame the coffee. I always do. But yeah, they could be all digital pets. Collectibles.
Well, I mean, spot 73, I imagine that it's like, Heinz 57 and 409. Like those for like Heinz 57 it took them 57 tries to get it right. Formula WD-40. 409, it took them 409. WD-40, yeah.
Yeah.
So she just didn't have it right the first 72 times.
There we go. Spot 73. It's going to be a hit. It's going to steal the show away from Picard, just like Q did.
Yay, Patton.
All right, folks. Thanks, Sherry. Thanks for calling back. Thanks for being with us. Thanks, everyone, for all your amazing chat. I'm sorry that we don't get to the chat as much as we can, but you are also very important to the show, and all of your insight is just amazing. I read it on the side. It's a good thing that I can read out of my left and right eye at the same time. Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production on Mission Log and Mission Log Live is provided by the Earl Green Skull Room. We were supposed to rename your room. It's going to be the trophy room, the Earl Green Intergalactic Skull Trophy Room. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry Podcasts. If you would like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Thanks, Holly, for being here. Thank you for wearing that amazing Borg poncho and for all of your enthusiasm and your insights for the show. Thanks to everyone who has joined us live or join us later. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll look forward to another double header with Disco and Picard on the live show with you next week.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.